Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you all so very much for joining us today. I'm here with my colleague and coworker and friend, Jenny Larkins from the Office of Assessments and Accountability. We have a couple of things that we want to share with you today. And so one of the things we wanted to let you know, if you have a questions, feel free to drop those questions in chat. And we have two different parts for you today to share. So feel free to drop the questions if you have any questions about anything in chat, and then we're going to break it up into two parts. So we're going to do assessments, and then we're going to do the accountability updates. So we're going to do, I'm going to start with the assessments, and then Jenny will go ahead on and just discuss some of the updates that are happening as a result of the accountability system. So again, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. And then at the end, we'll stop once I'm done with my part and just check to see if you have any questions that you want to clarify. If you want to come off mute, we'll be glad to take your questions at that time. So thank you, Jenny, for this first sheet that we have up here. This is the 2021-2022 testing plan. And we hope that you will use this as a resource when you are just a quick reference guide for what to expect for this testing season. The plan is listed all the assessments offered and
you always look so good.
And the grade level requirements.
You're a fighter.
This one pager reference is a handy resource for schools and districts. The kindergarten screen is administered, as you know, for just the students that are in kindergarten, okay? The content assessments, reading, mathematics, science, social studies, on-demand writing, editing, mechanics are part of the Kentucky summative assessments. And the Kentucky alternate summative assessments. So they're part of both. So we have the Kentucky summative assessment, and then we have the alternate Kentucky summative assessments as well. So as you know, reading and mathematics, which are federal requirements, are offered at grades 3 through 8 and 10. Science is given at grades 4, 7, and 11. Social studies, on-demand writing, and editing mechanics are administered at grades 5, 8, and 11. Of course, there are other assessments such as the ACT, end of course, and our access for ELs. As well as we will be administering the quality of school climate and safety survey. And they will all be administered during the 2021-2022 school year. Jenny, we can go to the next slide. Okay, thank you so very much. This slide covers our testing window to date. And I say that we have tentative here, and we kind of went back and forth discussing whether or not this is pretty much set. But again, we're still in the midst of a pandemic. There's still a lot of things that are happening in the districts. And so we're giving you this tentative window for you to have as a reference. But again, you know, if nothing else, we've learned in the last couple of years that we have to be flexible and be prepared for changes as they happen. Currently, we are administering one of our state assessments, and this is the Access for EL. This, the Access for EL began on January 6th, and it goes through February 18th. On the beginning of the assessments for the EL, of course, our state, half of our state was hit with a snowstorm. So schools were out, and we had to, but we had to make some adjustments. We have some plans. Hopefully we can get this done. It's going on now. We've heard that it's going well. And of course, all of our assessments, I will make the comment, all of the state assessment must be administered in person. We do not have virtual options for any of our state assessments. So as I said, the Access for EL is taking place now. It goes through February 18th. Then the next testing that will take place is the ACT. The initial testing date for ACT, the paper date, is March 8th. And then we'll have the accommodations, which will run from March 8th through the 11th and March 14th through the 18th. And then we have the online standard and accommodations window, which is also March 8th and 8th through the 10th, and then March 15th through the 17th. And Jenny's going to talk a little bit more about some upcoming changes within the ACT test, but then we'll have our makeup window. And let me just stress that we really are encouraging our districts to try and get as much of the initial testing window done during that initial testing window, just because, as we know, we don't know what to expect during that time, and schools, we hopefully will be in school. Our numbers for the pandemics will drop, and we'll be able to have our students in school. And as I stated before, we do not have any virtual tests available for state assessment. They're all administered in person. And then we have an emergency date that we have just in case the districts need it. And the standard emergency date is April 12th, as you can see here, as well as the accommodations and the online dates. Again, now we will have, and then after the ACT, we'll go into our second window for the alternate. We've completed the initial window for the alternate in the fall, and we're in the makeup stage for window 1. Window 2 for alternate assessment will begin April 18th and will go through May 27th. The TAR, which is administered for our 12th grade students in the alternate assessment program, started in September and will go through May 27th. We also will begin window 2 for the EOC. That will be, as you can see here, February 21st through the 4th, and then the window 3 is April 18th through 29th. In regards to our Kentucky summative assessment, it is the last instructional days of the district. And we know that the district calendars vary across the state. So this requirement is the last 14 instructional days. So during that period, that is also the period of which you will have for that includes your makeup time as well. So we're encouraging districts that you get the testing done, or plan to have the testing done as early as possible, so you can utilize that makeup time if needed. Okay, next. Some things that we did last year as a result of the pandemic and the waiver, and we will see that now in the 2021 through 2022 testing plan, is we've heard that, and it seems to work, we're looking at having a shorter test. So we will have, the test will be approximately 90 to 115 minutes. And the way we're able to ensure, because we're still required to ensure that we are covering all of the standards. So we were able to do that in the past with having the longer test, but as a result of having shorter tests, we have to create another design to ensure that all of the standards are covered. And the matrix design allows the state to be able to ensure that we are in compliance with covering our state standards. And the way we do that is we'll have multiple forms per content area. So having those different forms or multiple forms, we can ensure that we're covering the entire standard for each content. So the individual students will take fewer items. So what this means is for the students is that the individual students will take fewer items, but the forms, so different students will have different forms, and they will have fewer items, but they will be distributed in such a way that all of the content for the standards are covered. I want to make sure we understand that. So at the school level, assessments will reflect all of the standards. So we'll be in compliance with that. And this matrix design allows us to have the flexibility of doing that. So the reduced time and assessment will impact the reporting. Now, the individual students will receive the traditional novice, apprentice, proficient, and distinguished. So they will receive those performance level by content. Do I have any questions? Anything you need me to clear up here before we move on? So I just want to say once again, we're planning to have a shorter test, and it will vary by content. And again, we hope to have those testing times nailed down, and we'll be sharing those out as soon as they're finalized. Any additional question? Yes. Will there be, I see that there was a question, will all the tests be online, including the typing? Yes, all of our, except for, and let me clarify. All of our tests are online this year, except for our alternate assessment test and the students with accommodation that require a paper test. Any additional questions? And we have some updates around a move, which Jenny will cover here shortly, about the continual move to the online platforms. Okay.
Thanks, Ellen. So we do have a couple of things that we want to draw attention to that are kind of specific for this year or new this year. And the first is testing for students who are involved in that supplemental year. You might remember in last year's legislative session, Senate Bill 128 was passed, and that allowed students who wanted to repeat a course or all of the courses for the year, it allowed them to come back this year and do that. And we've had some questions about, well, how does that affect students' testing? Well, it's similar to the same way we handle if a student repeats a grade. If the student was in third grade last year and took the third grade, what was K-Prep then, Kentucky Summative Assessment now, and they've decided to use this year as a supplemental year and come back as third graders again, then they'll just retake that third grade test. So another example that we have here on the slide is if you have a student who was a junior last year and they took the ACT, if they use that supplemental year to repeat their junior year, then they can retake that ACT. So whatever grade they're enrolled in, they take the exams that are taken at that grade level. The one exception to that is if you have students who graduated last year, they wanted to walk with their cohort, so they wanted to actually have their year of graduation last year, but then they wanted to come back this year and repeat some courses. That is the exception. 12th grade students don't generally test as a requirement, but some of those students will take the Coyote, for example, to try to meet post-secondary readiness in that indicator. So if you have students who were assigned a G code last school year, they have already gone into your accountability for post-secondary readiness when they were in grade 12 and when that G code was assigned to them. So when they come back this year as part of the supplemental year program, if they repeat, they will not need to take assessments to try to meet post-secondary readiness. But we've put a little note on here, if the student wants to take it or needs to take it for their benefit somehow, that maybe it will, maybe that's what's used to see if they're eligible for dual credit course or something, they can. We're not saying they can't, but just that they don't have to try to meet the post-secondary readiness. Another update for this year that it looks like it's something that's going to be here to stay, but we're still working through all the details. But if you are working in high school or your test coordinator or principal in high school, you've probably already heard about this. We are now required to get parental consent from any student under 18 to complete certain parts of the ACT demographic part of the test. So if you remember, there is they call it the non-test portion or the pre-test portion of the ACT, where students have to fill out demographic information. They talk about the kind of courses they've taken in school, and they can request up to 4 score reports to be sent to colleges. Well, we are not allowed now to allow ACT to collect that information without parental consent for those students who are under 18. Our ACT consultant is Shara Savage. I've linked her email address here at the bottom. She has done some training on this that you can find on the ACT hosted Kentucky website, where she has gone into the processes that need to happen. I believe you have to, or the suggestion is that you have a separate non-test session for those students. So that, you have to verify that they've had parental consent before doing that. But again, Shara will have that information in her trainings, or you can email her with specific questions. Then something else we wanted to point out about ACT is that just really due to the successful experience that we've been having with online testing for our Kentucky summative assessments, or the K-Prep as they were, we've heard so much positive feedback from teachers and building assessment coordinators and district assessment coordinators that it's very much helpful to not have to deal with those paper test books, and just the sessions, it's simple for students. They're catching right on. Many students enjoy testing this way. So KDE has a plan in place that we're expecting to move to online testing completely for the school year 2022-23. Now, of course, accommodated students who need paper will still receive that, but eventually all students will be taking the ACT online. This is a transition year for that. So we have said that schools may have the option whether they want to use paper or online testing this year for the ACT. And that again is communicated in Shara's trainings. Now, this year we are recommending that everyone has selected the option to use paper because we don't know what's going to be happening with COVID and staff shortages and things in March. So just as a backup to maybe let Shara or ACT know through their PA Next that you would like to have a paper test date, because everything was pre-populated in Pearson Access Next as online testing. So if you haven't done that, reach out to Shara and see if it's not too late for that. I don't believe it is. But so this year, again, transition year, you have a choice, paper or online. Next year, expectation to fully test online. Now we'll switch gears a little bit and move into accountability. We don't have quite as much to share with you on accountability as we did assessments, because we have some things kind of in the works. The accountability system, the regulation for that, KAR 5270, became effective November 30th of this year, or this past year. So just a few months ago, it became effective. And a lot of the changes in that were as a result of what was Senate Bill 158 in 2020. We haven't been able to implement accountability since 2018-19, so we haven't seen this new system implemented yet. But before we can implement it completely, we have to negotiate with the U.S. Department of Ed to have our state plan, which includes our accountability system. We have to have that state plan approved by them. So we're working through the little details of the accountability system, how we're going to calculate things, how the indicators will work, and all the little specifics of it, along with how we're going to identify schools for CSI, TSI, and ATSI. So anytime that those decisions are changed, we have to go through that approval process again with U.S. Department of Ed, and that's where they are. Now, while that part is still being worked through, what we do know is that the U.S. Department of Ed does expect that we will have assessments this year and we will have accountability. Again, we haven't had accountability for the last 2 school years, but this year they're saying, yes, you will. And so, of course, we have to say, okay, we will. And so that's being worked out. But in the meantime, we do have some resources for you to help you look over at what we're expecting accountability to look like if all of it is approved. Again, I want to keep stressing that they could come back to us and say, no, we're not pleased with how you've done this. You need to make a change here or there. And so some things could change. But based on Senate Bill 158, we have this accountability at a glance document that we have on the first bullet here. And that is, I think it's 3 pages, and it's got some colored graphics on it. And it basically breaks down the accountability system in just a real manageable pieces, a very high level overview of the state indicators, the weights of each indicator, how we're anticipating status and change are going to look when it's applied, and that kind of thing. So that's there on our website. We've linked. Then also we have linked this assessment accountability reporting through 2024. And that's a 1-page document that lists what assessments will be given, what we're expecting to be in accountability, and what we're expecting to publicly report all the way through 2024. And just, I want to, I guess, stress that those are tentative. We have a little note in that document that it's subject to change based on state or federal law that changes. You know, of course, we would have to change. And then other things that might happen. For example, we know now that the science standards are being revised, but that there could be a delay in what you see on this particular chart where science falls, just based on if things wrap up in time to be as they're reported on that document. So those are 2 helpful documents. And then Helen is going to let you know about the other 2 resources that she has.
And thank you, Jenny.
Sure.
And we talked about the fact that accountability went into effect on November 30th of last year. But prior to that, we actually created a PowerPoint about the accountability system that goes into a little bit more depth, if you want to have that as a reference for you to just kind of sit down and just kind of look at all the indicators and all of the changes that are coming as a result of the accountability system. So we actually created the PowerPoint, and then we actually did a video for districts to be able to access as well. We wanted to make sure within we had this opportunity to share some things with you. And sometimes we recognize that our website can be, you know, there's a lot of information there, a lot of good information, but there's a lot of information there. But if you're looking for something specific regarding to assessments and accountability as it stands today, and I think Jenny was trying to allude to the fact that, you know, our legislators are meeting, we're in negotiations with USCD, but the information that we have as of today, we've tried to link those resources for you just so you would have quick access to them. And I think we have a couple of other links within this presentation itself, and you can have access to that as well. So that being said, do we have any questions that you guys want clarification on, or anything that we can help you with this time?
And Helen, while we're waiting for that, I'll go ahead and mention also that we have posted the link to this PowerPoint deck in the resources area of your EdCamp little grid. If you do have any trouble with that, I have also sent the email to, the PowerPoint to Keith. So you can always reach out to him, the organizer of this event, and he can just send that to you through email if for some reason you're not able to access that. Have we had anything come into chat, Helen?
Yes, it says, will we get an outline of test structures, time spans per grade? We are in the, yes, to answer your question, yes, we, short answer, yes, we are. It is, we're still working with our vendor to verify the specific times. We were hoping to have that done by the time we present it to you today, but definitely you will have it prior to going into the Kentucky Summative Assessment testing windows. So they're in the works.
And Helen, this might be a good time also to let everybody know. I know we do have a couple of DACs on here, but most of our attendants may not be DACs. So we do trainings every year in February DAC trainings, we call them.
That's a very good point.
And there are presentations on all of our spring assessments and SDRR application and different things like that. And we have recorded video trainings and the PowerPoint slides that go with those. And they will be shared in what we call our Monday DAC email sometime in the next couple weeks. I think maybe the last week in January, first week in February.
It's Monday the 31st at the latest is when we're planning to have those ready for people to access.
Yes, and so you can get a lot more information, and we're hoping those test items charts will be ready by that time when we release those February DAC trainings also. But they will be available on our website. Just type in February DAC training in the search box and you should be able to find it from there. We didn't link it here because we don't have those posted yet.
A couple of questions that popped up.
Okay.
Okay, so we answered that one. Will this presentation be on the P3 website?
Well, I don't know about the P3 website, but I did add the link to the resources in this, where you had your EdCamp grid, where you could pick, look at your different sessions and choose which one you wanted to go. There's a link within each presentation that you can click on and it will provide those resources. And that's where I added the link. And that's the one I said that if you're not able to access it, you can just contact Keith. And how do you say Keith's last name, Christy?
Greiser.
Greiser.
Hey,
Okay.
I'm Allison from P3. The recordings will be on the session outline where you've linked the slide presentation as well. Once we get them all downloaded, it'll be all on that one page.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yes.
Also, the next question is, does KDE have any data? Well, I think I skipped over one. Okay, Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Do you anticipate the new on-demand rubrics and new on-demand format will be used this year? What I will say is hopefully you are aware that we have a Kentucky portal, and within that teachers and will be able to actually start we have practice tests available for all of our students, and within that we will if there are any additional resources, they will be there to be, and this is prior to. So we want our students to have access to actually seeing the test, seeing how the tests will perform in that platform. And so the rubrics, and if they're available, they'll be able to see some of that as well at that spot. This is a really good tool, and we probably should have linked that one too, Jenny.
Yeah.
But we can get that to you as well. But what that is a platform for teachers to go in prior to the actual state assessments for a Kentucky Summative Assessments, for the students to have an opportunity to have access to how the test is. They can actually practice some of the tests that will be performed. Now, these are not the actual test assessment. It's just for the two students to have the experience of utilizing the online test. So does that answer your question, Kelly?
Okay, our time is up, but we do have one more question. Does KDE have any data showing an achievement difference in paper, pencil versus online testing?
I don't have a lot of details around this, but I will say I know that ACT has done a comparability study for that. And I think Shara talks about that in one of her trainings. I don't work with Pearson directly in my role. So that is a question that maybe they can email to us, if that's okay, and we can do a little research and get back with them. Because I frankly don't know. I'm not sure if Helen does or not.
I think there is some data, but I think we would really definitely, if you don't care to email us, and we will definitely follow up with you and get that get the information back to you. Because keep in mind, the first time we actually did this, we did a field test, and then last year was the first time that we actually conducted the online assessments for state accounts for state, and we did a shorter test. So there's some of that has to be taken into account as well. So it was definitely a shorter test last year that did not necessarily meet all of the criteria as this test will do. So that will probably be a little bit more complete picture of what that looks like this upcoming test season.
All right, thank you, ladies. I appreciate all this information. It was fantastic. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you all. And thank you
Have a
all.
great day.
Participants. Thanks.
Thank you.